You know, your entire life you hear about gateways. No, I don't mean that kind of gateway. When I say gateway, I mean they don't want you to do something kind of bad because it'll lead to something really bad. For example, don't smell the donut because then you'll probably eat it. Don't try marijuana, that will lead you on to other dangerous drugs. Don't have just a sip, you're going to want more. Don't hack off one of their limbs, you're going to want to chop them all off. Well, in this incredibly addicting hobby of collecting collectibles, that's why they call it collecting, I've had what I would call a few gateways, and today I want to talk about those. With statues, not drugs or chopping people up. As the Extreme channel is pushing towards 50,000 subscribers, these are just a few of the statues we are giving away on the journey there. If you want to know how to win one, stay tuned for later in the video. Hey, thanks for tuning into the Extreme channel. My name is Mr. X. A big part of this channel is all about extreme collectibles. Now recently, I was looking through some of the stuff I have and I wonder, how did I start going down this rabbit hole here, or this rabbit hole here? And I realized there were significant moments within my collecting career, specifically with statues, that actually led me down to, hey, now I want this type of collection or this type of display. Now I'm not talking about what got me into statue collecting. I talked about it in this video that's a few years old and not much has changed. Quick summary though, I was collecting autographed sports stuff, which led to autographed movies, which led to Hot Toys, and then eventually statues. But when I started getting into statues about 7 years ago, and even later on down the road, I noticed there were some significant purchases that actually led me into other ones. And that's what I want to talk about today. So let's just kick off the list in no particular order. What really got me into the larger scale statues was my first arrival of a premium format. Now this was from Sideshow Collectibles. It was this Skeletor right here. This was the gateway into what I would say quarter scale statues, even though this is 1/5 scale, a little bit smaller. But I remember everything about that statue. Almost all these purchases we're going to talk about today. The excitement that it gave that I still have to this day when I open up statues. How I couldn't believe something like this existed. So that Skeletor was the gateway into quarter scale statues for me. While at that time, this was my first bigger statue, I also remember it led to my first over $1,000 purchase on a statue, and that was the pre-order for Sideshow's Thanos on Throne, this piece right here. And while I didn't arrive for a while because I pre-ordered it and I bought Skeletor directly, I gotta tell you that when I opened the Sideshow Thanos on Throne, it blew my mind, and right then, price was not gonna be an object when buying these high-end collectibles. So Thanos was the gateway for $1,000 plus purchases, or really honestly, or a better way to say it is money was not a concern anymore. It got me past that hump of, I can't believe I'm spending that much money, to, it's totally worth it. And like many people, Sideshow was the source of my addiction, that and eBay for quite a while, until I discovered XM Studios. And from our wonderful boy, Anton Wu, who introduced me to XM Studios 7 years ago, I think it was, I purchased this piece right here, XM Studios Ghost Rider. Now, if I was impressed with any statue at the time, this blew away those expectations. I didn't know this type of elaborate, amazing detail could actually exist in a quarter scale statue. So it was no longer those simple premium formats, but these big, crazy statues. And that pulled away the hesitation for anything regarding XM Studios. So Ghost Rider was my gateway into XM Studios. So sticking with size a little bit, believe it or not, my first 1/3 scale statue was a huge one.
That's what she said.
But it was none other than Prime One Studios Doomsday. That's right, this was my first 1/3 scale, which kind of blows my mind. So because of that, I have collected over 50 1/3 scale statues since then, and I still own that Doomsday. It's one of the best that Prime One Studios has ever done. Now, if you graduated like me from smaller statues like Hot Toys to quarter scale and on up, you know that when you really get that 1/3 scale, how amazing the detail it is. Just the way it displays is super impressive. Again, it opened up the door. That Doomsday was my gateway to any 1/3 scale statues. So as you're probably aware, I have some favorite characters that I have a lot of different versions of that character. Right behind me, you can see a bunch of Wolverines. Well, believe it or not, this Sideshow premium format was my gateway into Wolverines. I've owned over 40 different Wolverine statues, and this is the reason why. Not only specifically this statue, but just my love for Wolverine in the comics and growing up. I think he's a favorite of many. And that Sideshow statue was my gateway into buying all these different Wolverine statues. And kind of staying on that same theme, I've owned over 30 different Venom statues. However, my first, which also was one of my first introductions to my boy the Toddfather at Spec Fiction, was this XM Studios Venom. I was blown away by this. Venom is my second favorite character of all time, and I love his comics, and this really brought it to life for me. Now, you may know where I'm going with this, but my favorite character is Silver Surfer, and kind of an interesting story. My favorite statue is this statue right here. Now, this was a gateway, but let me explain what it is. I had never purchased a custom statue. That's what that is. It's a private unlicensed commission. And I saw renders of it, and I spent probably a month talking to so many different people, trying to track it down. And then finally, once I did, I was told it was sold out, which was really unfortunate because I was going to miss out on it. And as a spoiler, you know I did eventually get it. I'll talk about that in a second. However, the commissioner then said, I have another piece up for order that you might be interested in. And he showed me renders of this giant Iceman. So believe it or not, when it comes to custom statues, you would think I started simple. No, this was the first custom statue I ever PO'd. Crazy to think that. Now, it's not the first one I received, but it's definitely the first one I PO'd. And then I kind of got addicted and started buying a lot into that custom group. So the commissioner had some APs reserved, which is kind of typical format, finally did offer me one of those Silver Surfers at retail, which was fantastic. Now, that wasn't the first Silver Surfer statue I ever received, but it was definitely my gateway into finding different customs, and then the Iceman was the gateway into POing other customs. And kind of along those lines, that same custom route actually got me into another gateway of buying prototypes. So I've owned about 12 different prototypes, and I love prototypes for so many different reasons. One, I think they're incredibly exclusive. I mean, obviously it's the only one in the world like that. They're all professionally painted as opposed to factory paint. And the first prototype I ever got was this giant Magneto that I still own to this day. You can see him right there. And that was my introduction to, hey, if I have the opportunity to get hands on a prototype, within decent reason, I am absolutely going to snag it up. So that Magneto was the gateway into me actually buying prototypes of statues. Now, kind of along those same lines, when I get a prototype, one of the reasons I told you I like it, it's typically professionally painted. Now, while buying unpainted statues kits is a big pain in the ass for so many different reasons, I have to admit, if you get a kit professionally painted, it blows away everything else. And the statue that was kind of the gateway for me on that opened my eyes, was when S7 Customs did this custom Sabretooth for me. It is unbelievably painted, and so are many, many other pieces that I currently own. However, this was that gateway into, you know what? Paying someone an extra $1,000 to have it professionally painted or repainted or something of that nature is actually worth it. Maybe not from a resale standpoint, but from a display and beauty and art standpoint. Believe it or not, one of the first statue purchases I made was a life-size bust. It was this cool props alien right here, Alien Warrior. And again, I bought this because I was buying movie memorabilia, and to me that's what this was. I wasn't even in the statue realm yet. Now, while this was kind of a gateway to life-size busts, it wasn't a true human. And the next one I purchased is actually right here, this T-800 endoskeleton. Now, I don't own this anymore because it fell off a shelf and was completely damaged, unfortunately. So that was a big $1,500 loss. And I don't want to talk about gateways to losses, but there are a hell of a lot of them in this hobby. That kind of led the way for me to life-size busts, and my first human life-size bust was actually this Iron Spider from Queen Studios. Now, I thought it was absolutely amazing, and while I'm getting out of the bust game now, it led me to my next bust purchase, which was my first silicone purchase. The gateway into silicone statues was also from Queen Studios. I bought this Heath Ledger Joker, which I still have to this day. Absolutely amazing piece. And since then, I bought over 40 different busts, but about 20 of them was that silicone type skin like the Heath Ledger has. Now, statues can work as reverse gateways too, and that's happened many times for me. What I mean by that is I was actually interested in the statue, even though I didn't know much about the source material, and it got me into the source material. Well, the best example of that, and I have a few of them, is Guts from Berserk. This Prime One Studios piece right here was not only the first of about 15 Berserk statues I bought, but it got me into the actual storyline. I think I'm on manga number 9 right now of the big editions, so it kind of swings both ways. Gateways, not me. Which leads me to my last one. Recently, I had another gateway, and this is hard to explain because it's not my first life-size statue. I have a Han Solo and Carbonite, but this life-size Iron Man from Queen Studios caused me to pull the trigger on 3 other ones, and I'm sure there's going to be more in the future. I thought this was absolutely amazing, and this was 100% definitely a gateway into future statues to come. So I found this an interesting topic. Maybe you didn't, but you're still watching. We will be giving all of these statues away, plus additional ones at every 5,000 subscriber milestone. To win one of these statues, all you have to do is make sure you've liked this video, you've subscribed to the channel, you've hit that bell notification, and then just drop a comment below. Every 5,000 subscriber milestone, we are going to do a random drawing and pick a random comment and give one of these statues away, plus some additional ones I'm not showing right now. The more videos you comment on, the higher your chances are to win. Hey, throw down in the comments below what some of your gateways are that might help you win that statue we're talking about. Also, if you could do me a favor, just hit that like button. I really appreciate it. Take care of yourself. Nobody else will.